Help me to reach 2,000 subscribers. The lipstick rolled out from beneath the passenger seat and stopped against my shoe. A smear of crimson on the silver cap. Expensive. Bold. Not mine. For a few seconds, the world fell silent inside that car, just the low hum of the engine and my pulse pounding in my ears. My hands trembled as I picked it up, twisting the cap open. The color was scarlet velvet. I remembered it because I'd seen it once before, on the lips of the banker who always greeted my husband with a little too much familiarity. Long day, huh? Jason had said last week, sliding into bed past midnight, his breath tinged with coffee and faint perfume. The audit's killing us. You know how the bank gets this time of year. He kissed my forehead and turned away before I could respond. Now, that same faint perfume lingered on the lipstick in my hand. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the dashboard. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked foreign. Eyes red, jaw clenched, face pale under the dashboard light. A small crack in my chest began to widen, filling with dread. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe someone left it there by accident. But even as I tried to convince myself, my heart whispered the truth I wasn't ready to face. The next morning, Jason was all smiles. He brewed coffee, kissed my cheek, and said, "I might have to stay late again tonight, babe. The new client portfolio's a mess." He didn't notice the lipstick tube sitting neatly beside his travel mug. For a second, his face froze. Then he laughed, too casually. "What's this? Did you start wearing red again?" "I don't wear that shade," I said quietly. He shrugged, picking it up. "Must be one of your friends from when we went to the lake, maybe." I didn't reply. Just watched him slip the lipstick into his pocket. That movement, the way he did it so effortlessly, felt like a dagger disguised as a gesture. The first crack in our marriage wasn't the lipstick. It was the silence that followed. I stopped asking questions, and he stopped answering ones I never asked. I found myself scanning his shirts for perfume, checking the car's odometer, memorizing his schedule. My reflection began to look like a stranger, a woman living two lives, the one she presented and the one unraveling beneath the surface. I remembered when we used to talk for hours about nothing and everything. Now, our conversations felt like rehearsed lines in a dying play. "Did you eat?" "Yeah." "Need anything from the store?" "No." Each word was another stone in the wall between us. One evening, I decided to visit him at the bank. He'd mentioned he'd be working late again, reviewing loan adjustments. I baked his favorite lemon muffins, packed them in a box, and told myself it was just a sweet surprise. But as I drove, my heart pounded with something darker, curiosity laced with fear. The parking lot was mostly empty, the windows glowing faintly under the streetlights. I spotted Jason's car near the side entrance. Lights were still on in his office. I walked through the quiet corridors, my heels clicking against the tiled floor. The scent of coffee and toner hung in the air. Then, faint laughter, soft, intimate, wrong. I followed it to the break room door, slightly ajar. Inside, Jason stood close to her. The banker. Melissa. Her lipstick, scarlet velvet, was smudged against his collar. He brushed his thumb against her cheek like it was something he'd done 100 times before. "I told you she doesn't suspect anything," he whispered. "Just a few more weeks. I'll talk to her." Melissa smiled, tracing his jaw. "You always say that." I couldn't breathe. My knees nearly gave out, but I forced myself to stay silent. To watch. To remember. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. I didn't want to burst in screaming or beg for an explanation. I wanted to understand how the man I built a life with had turned into a stranger. I left the muffins outside his office door. When he came home that night, he hugged me tightly, smelling of mint gum instead of coffee and perfume. "You're quiet," he said softly. "Just tired," I replied. He smiled. "You're working too hard. Let me take you out this weekend." That night, I lay beside him, wide awake. I could feel his heartbeat against my back, steady, confident, deceitful. I thought about the promise he made at our wedding, the vows he whispered when no one else was listening. I'd believed in those words. believed in him. And yet, here we were, two actors pretending the stage lights were still on. I started preparing my exit quietly, opened a separate bank account, gathered copies of our documents, booked an appointment with a lawyer. But beneath the practicality was chaos, a storm of grief, anger, disbelief, and something dangerously close to guilt. Was it my fault? Had I stopped being enough? These thoughts poisoned me at night. I'd replay moments of laughter, of intimacy, of ordinary days that suddenly felt like lies. 1 week later, Jason announced we were hosting a dinner for his banking colleagues. I almost laughed at the irony. Melissa arrived in a red dress, the same shade as her lipstick. Her eyes flickered when she saw me, then softened into something almost pitying. "Beautiful home," she said, sipping wine. "You're lucky to have him." I smiled, steady. Yes. I used to think so too. Throughout dinner, I watched them exchange glances. Tiny, imperceptible moments, but I saw every one. The brushing of hands when she passed him a dish, the way his laughter deepened when she spoke. I waited until dessert. As he poured her more wine, I leaned forward. "Melissa, I believe this is yours." I set the lipstick on the table. Scarlet velvet gleamed under the chandelier. The air went still. Jason's hand froze mid-pour. Melissa's smile faltered. "Found it in Jason's car," I continued, my voice calm, almost tender. "Next to his briefcase. I thought maybe he kept it as a reminder of all those extra hours." No one spoke. The silence was deafening. Then I stood, wiping my hands on a napkin. "I won't make a scene," I said quietly. "You've both done enough of that for me." I turned to Jason. "You always said the bank was where you found your purpose. I hope she was worth what you lost in the process." Then I walked out, past the half-eaten dessert, the stunned faces, the woman in red, and the man I no longer recognized. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I stood by my car, looking up at the house that had once felt like home. For the first time in months, I felt something unfamiliar, peace. Not because the pain was gone, but because the pretending was. The lipstick still sat in my hand. I twisted it open one last time, letting the scent of perfume and betrayal fill the air before dropping it into the trash. It hit the bottom with a soft, hollow sound. Just like the end of us.